one of the drivers in that lineup. And that is a wonderful noise because that's the engine of the Daytona sports car Sin being rolled out of the garage. So very happy to see them on the pit lane. I think that means we're down to 3 Invitational class cars now, though.
Thank you, Shea, down in the pit lane. That Mark Carr's machine, the Blue 52 from yesterday, Keith Kasulke behind the wheel. Very, very scary moment for Keith. He was coming through the fastest corner in Australian motorsport, TM, Richard Creel, and came through the right-hander, went to the brake pedal to slow down as he was coming up the hill towards the Ridges Hotel, and we believe it was the left front brake disc, the rotor, that exploded on that car. Therefore, it dragged him slightly to the left, and of course he had zero retardation, bounced up over the curb and got airborne, and made it all the way to the guardrail and the tyre wall in front of Ridges there. The car did exactly what it was meant to do. It deformed, it dissipated the energy. It did end up on its roof because it bounced back from the wall. Such was the pace that it went in there. Keith was extracted by our hard-working recovery team, and he was talking to them. And that car came back just as we were leaving on the flatbed. Actually, came out on the flatbed. The front end of that car, Richard Creel, extremely deranged. I noticed the garage door was down this morning. I take it that means that we won't be seeing that car for the rest of the weekend, and they haven't, unlike the other story, which we'll get to in a moment, they haven't got a replacement.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rich.
Apologies for my tardiness.
No, it's all right.
This morning. Lots going on
Absolutely
in the media centre here at Mount Panorama. Yes, you're spot on. And first and foremost, obviously, we send our regards to Keith, who will feel the effects of that for a while. There'll be an update from Mark Cars Australia a little bit later on this morning about both his condition and indeed more about the car. But as you touched on, the number one thing out of everything that went on with that incident yesterday was that the car did its job. The safety systems in that car worked very, very well, and maybe 10 years ago might not have done such a good job in protecting Keith from serious injury. So that is absolutely the key outcome of everything that happened yesterday, is that Keith is A-OK, and the remarkable safety systems in modern racing cars, which never cease to amaze me about how brutal some of the hits are, and they only get more brutal as the racing cars go quicker, but the cars are so much better at protecting the occupant and the safety systems around them. So that's the main thing, and we're looking forward to seeing Keith come back.
On the World Feed TV, giving you some Billy bonus coverage this morning. We weren't originally going to have this session up. It's going to be limited, but we wanted to get you into the feel of the event this morning. Our riggers, all of the people who come in early and do the yeoman's work of getting cameras set up and linking things to our gallery truck down in the back of the paddock here, have done an outstanding job. All of our techs have been flat out this week, so thank you to them. And as we have had everything set up and faxed out, as it's known in broadcasting terms, make sure that the facilities are working, hence faxed out. We thought we'd give you a little bit of additional coverage so that you can get into the mood if you're not here listening on 103.9 FM around the world, via radiolemans.com, the YouTube channels, and a couple of other syndications as well. So thank you very much to those who have come in early on what is already a long day today to cut some pictures for us here in the booth and for you further afield. It's got me really excited. I can't help it. Absolutely brilliant. At RSL_studio. And the sights and sounds now, for those of you here and further afield, of Mount Panorama and the 2023 LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12 Hours. The other story from yesterday, which was a car swap, and indeed we've got a red flag very early on. We'll find out about that in a moment. So somebody's dropped in on the outlap with the 1 hour session. Now 3 minutes of that has been completed. Was a car swap and a class swap yesterday, and I think whatever the rule book says, really common sense officiating by everybody. There was a bit of back and forth on the race control channel about whether it was all there in black and white, but effectively we've kept a team and a set of drivers, most of a set of drivers in the race.
Well, the rule book says that you can swap cars in event with the permission and dispensation of the race officials. So, yeah, people that argue it, as long as the people upstairs overlooking such things agree with it, if you don't like the decision, too bad, basically. But so long story short, the KTM Crossbow GT2, and it's really disappointing that car's not running because it's a rocket ship. It's a really cool looking thing. 90% of the world's carbon fiber resources go into building it. 5-cylinder turbo engine. It produces lots of horsepower. The thing is, the quickest car in a straight line, 600 horsepower, 285 kilometres an hour down Conroy. Comfortably quickest car at the in the race this weekend. Unfortunately, Dave Crampton and the M Motorsport KTM team have been battling an engine misfire an engine drama for some time. So they could not get to the bottom of it. So KTM in Europe sent them an entire new engine, electrical gearbox, driveline system. Unfortunately, yesterday in practice 2, they had the same problem and it blew up. Fortunately, Audi Sport Melbourne Performance Centre have a spare car here, and a deal was struck very, very quickly to lease that, and they have swapped over. The best thing about this, John, and this is yet to be reported, is that car is the very same machine that last year in the race in May was driven up from Melbourne overnight on Friday night, rebuilt throughout Saturday.
Oh, really?
For the Honduras racing team. No. It was rebuilt, it was upgraded to Evo specification at the circuit, and it made the start of the race last year after Theo Honduras had a big crash on Friday practice. It's the same car. So 2 years in a row,
oh, right,
it's been the super sub for the race.
Yeah.
That car has never been on the entry list until the Saturday morning at this race, which is a cool story. So well done to the KTM M Motorsport team. Well done to Troy Russell and the team at Audi Sport Customer Racing Australia for doing the deal to make it happen.
And Shea Adam has more from the pit lane. You're not missing any action out on the track. Everyone's cycling back to the pit lane just to come and see you, Shea.
Yeah, exactly. Well, me and Dries Vantour are standing out here on the wall watching all these cars coming back in. No damage on any of the cars, so that's the good news. Dries, you're in your fire suit, getting ready to go out around the circuit, but sharing a car this weekend with two guys who have never been to the mountain. How do you both get them energized about it and try and calm them down a little bit?
Yeah, it's quite difficult because they both have quite a high energy peak during the day. No, I'm joking, but no, I mean, they're both talented and experienced enough to get their way around the track, and I can give a little bit of my knowledge. It's not like I'm the most experienced guy here, but like I said, I give a bit of my knowledge, and yeah, and then it's up to them as well at the end.
You do have the knowledge of how to win at this place, though, and a lot of knowledge also from your brother, Lawrence, who's driven very well here in the past. Does that help you when you come here with a new car, not only to the team, but also a new car to the mountain?
Yeah, but it's a difficult way because, you know, like you said, it's a new car, it's a new challenge for us. So we really have to, you know, start from zero again, which is not easy. But yeah, like you said, the experience I have here and the help which I had from my brother in the past, and knowing to be able how to do this race a bit helps. But it's still a difficult process when you start from zero.
Is it going to be easier this year that the temperatures are a bit more forgiving than they have been the last couple of times you've done the race?
Yeah, it feels like it's a lot more cold than the past years, so hopefully it stays like this. I think on Sunday it will get hotter again anyway, but it's also good for us as drivers to just have a bit of a more relaxing time in the car, otherwise it's way too hot. But our car actually has good aircon, so it's not too bad, but it's also good for everything. It's for the tires, for the engine, for everything. So hopefully it stays a bit like this.
The only turbo car in the field, do you think that'll give you an advantage when the temperatures are cooler?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, should normally do. So hopefully we can make that use, and otherwise, yeah, we have to wait and see for the race, I guess. It's difficult to say at the moment.
Thanks, Dries. Fingers crossed.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Well, if you're here at the track or watching our beautiful pictures, I mean, I know we rave on about this, but this is a great place to come and watch motor racing. It's a great place to televise motor racing, and it lends itself to television at various times of the day. You will have noticed that the 101, this is the Volante Rosso Motorsport black Mercedes with the red stripes, very mid-1960s George Barrow's Batmobile, just needs the flames out the back. Going straight through and starting another lap here, that is a no-no. Unless that car was beyond the pit lane and in the gravel and was the cause of the red flag, which I don't think it was, they are going to get a penalty. And in fact, that has been assessed. A 10-minute time penalty for disobeying red flag. So that car will be parked for 10 minutes of this session. There are 51 minutes to go as it comes into the pit lane now. And who was behind the wheels of that?
Ross Palakis,
all right.
Harold's Volante Rosso racing car, so bronze driver, just his second year of car racing. Could be any kind of scenario that leaves a driver out on the circuit. The driver could have missed the red flag and gone around again. As simple as that. It happens. Look, it's a fundamental, but sometimes these things go wrong. Radio call, could be radio issues. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe get an explanation for that. But these things happen, so they'll have to sit out 10 minutes, and as that happens, the session goes green immediately. The difference between today and yesterday, John, is that today is not only forecast to be a little bit warmer, but these two practice sessions are 60 minutes. And the vibe I got in the paddock yesterday was that 40 minutes was 10 minutes not enough for people to work through the programs they wanted to work through in the sessions. 40 minutes just wasn't quite there. And you go, well, that's a long practice session. Don't they do too much practice anyway? Well, yes and yes. In every respect, except at a circuit that's 6.213 kilometres long and takes 2 minutes and 5 seconds to get around. So the most laps we saw in any one session yesterday was 14. That's not a massive sample size to get data, to get information on tyre wear, on tyre degradation, on tyre warm-up, driver comfort, all of the little 1%ers you need to get sorted throughout the practice session. So that was the vibe I got yesterday. How they manage these 60-minute sessions, an extra 20 minutes is 10 laps, potentially. If you want to do a race simulation, you could go out there and do 25 laps in this session and have a really good understanding of what your car is like over a race distance or a stint distance, fuel burn, tyre wear, and how they phase over the course of a stint. So that's going to be very interesting to see how they manage this session in particular. I touched on the weather as well, and yesterday was the coolest day of the week in this part of the world. It was quite warm early on. Yesterday, we only saw 21 degrees here at Mount Panorama, so it was the coolest day. The track temp was in the 30s because there was a lot of UV around. The other thing, and I had a good chat to a couple of drivers about this, is that some teams are really struggling to get their cars dialed in with a minimum tyre pressure regulation that is in for the first time this year. So when the cars leave pit lane, they must have 1.4 bar of pressure. It's about 20.5 PSI. If you're going down to the local BP servo and you use a little tyre pressure machine and you set it to 32 for your road car tyres, so they're allowed to start at just over 20 PSI. Cannot be lower than that, and it's a safety thing. So any lower than that, the tyre bulges more, the sidewall flexes, and that's where the damage happens for your tyres. So minimum tyre pressure, you go below it, you get penalised quite severely. But what it means is that you need to manage that where the tyre builds its pressure as it builds temperature over the course of a stint. And yesterday, some teams were struggling. One driver who didn't want to be named because he didn't want to give away the car brand said that within 3 laps we were over pressure. Our starting pressures were too high, so we had to change that for a second set of tyres. Another one said we went out with too high a spring rate. The car was too stiff on the tyre because of the higher pressures in the tyre, so they've had to throw springs at the car to soften the car up because the tyres are doing less of the work in absorbing the ride on the circuit. So all these things are what the geniuses up and down pit lane are trying to unpick today before they get into qualifying later on, and then, of course, tomorrow for 12 hours.
All right, before we get the fast times coming through, let's say hello to some of the international viewers and listeners who have tuned in to join us here on 103.9 FM and on the very efficient PA system around here. Right Turn Lover is right in the middle of Europe. Hello RTL. Clayton Hoffman stretched out and watching practice from Mount Panorama. Can't believe the great coverage that the whole broadcast team puts in weekend after weekend. Thank you for that. All the hard work goes on behind the scenes, Clayton. You know that. Over on the other side of the Atlantic, Tim Barnes never failed to get excited for this race. Never mind having to stay up late in the UK to watch this. It is simply unmissable, and it's using the hashtag B12HR. Good, excellent stuff. Hello to Peter Croft. He's in Albany, New York, USA. Minus 15 Celsius there.
Oh, no, thanks. No,
Crailsey has just literally shuddered as I said that. By the way, I mentioned Right Turn Lover. He asked this question, it's a fair question. The 10-minute penalty for the 101 Valenti Rosso Motorsport car, is that can't go out or can't touch the car? Well, if there was a penalty box, they'd be sitting in the penalty box. So I presume that they just have to sit there.
Correct. The car is sitting on the pit lane, completely unassisted by any mechanic, and it does have a wheel chock behind the left rear wheel, but that's the only contact with anything belonging to the team. I'm just up a couple boxes up, the 222, this is Scott Taylor Motorsport. They're having issues with the car actually leaving the box. I think it's Craig Lowndes behind the wheel. Tried to put it in gear and move it forward. It went about 10 feet into the fast lane and then stopped, would go no further. Now the car is being put onto the dolly jacks and it will be rolled back into the garage. So I'm gonna stick around and make sure that there's not something wrong with the clutch of the gearbox here, because this is a fan favorite car with the hashtag #GetChecked on the rear wing, raising money for Prostate Cancer Foundation, not only of Australia, that's where the money is going, but they're trying to keep this message global.
Yeah, that is a global campaign. We've seen it in Europe and in the US as well. That's where Steve Tenney is. He's in Maryland, USA, late afternoon there at the moment, loving the bonus coverage and getting an early vision of the mountain. Don't say thanks to us, because Crailsey and I were going to be sitting here getting excited about race cars anyway. Our hard-working TV crew have put this together and got everything done in such good time that we're able to give you some a bit of an early look, a bit of Billy bonus coverage of this session.
And I need to say hola to the team at Supercars Argentina. We're big in Argentina, and I don't know why, but we've got the best group of fans over there who follow every race, not just Supercars, but the 12-hour and the 6-hour and everything else that happens here at Mount Panorama and around the country. So hello guys, as always, love you guys tweeting and joining the conversation and getting involved with our racing. I hope things are nice in Argentina. I don't know what the weather will be like in Argentina. Southern Hemisphere, so they'd be in a summer? I don't know how that works. You'd imagine so. Anyway, let us know. They'll tweet us, I guarantee you. Currently 11.2 degrees shown. It feels warmer than that outside. Bright sunshine. That feels like temperature 7, which is extremely unseasonable. But I'm looking at a few people with hoods on, but lots of shorts being worn, a couple of people getting around in the thong, so that's all right. It will warm up to just over 20 degrees today, which is nice. It'll cool down about 19, 18 degrees C for the Pirelli shootout this afternoon.
You have to explain to the international audience flip-flops, thongs, thank you,
or jandals for our New Zealand audience.
There's a lot of people will have gone, it's how hot they're walking around in thongs?
Yeah, well, I've seen crazy things, John, at this place. Not at this event necessarily, nor the one in October, but yeah. There are stories to tell. A 60-minute practice session is not long enough to do that.
No. Hello to Andy Droy, to Dan Vitale, to Patrick Dron, to Gert. How do we all feel after Daytona and the trip to Bathurst? We're all right, actually. Normality is set in again. It's become something like that. Talk, the big talk. Enjoy the pictures, those of you watching. We're waiting for some times to come in. Suspicion and talk, Crailsey, as reported by John DeGeese, who's also come around from Daytona for Sports Car 365, in an interview yesterday, that a change to this date, pushing this event back a couple of weeks because of the investors coming in from the US-based teams to allow them to get, even not the cars, but certainly the teams and some of the equipment around here?
Yeah, certainly nothing official yet. We should state, don't worry. Nothing is changing, but it was theorised in a round table with the event director yesterday that there could be a potential to look at where the event slots. And there's an argument going, well, why do we need to do that? We should be catering to the Aussie audience. Agree with that. But at the same time, this is one of the hardest places in the world and most expensive places in the world to get cars, drivers and teams. So you need to be cognizant of other events and their spacing on the calendar. So for a GTD team that wants to run a car at the Rolex 24 and then bring their crew and their drivers and down to Australia to race in this race using another car, for example, a week isn't enough time. And it's fine for Matty Campbell, who can slot in thanks to Porsche in seat 1A and be looked after and get a good night's sleep on the plane down here. But for Joe Bloggs, who's changing the right rear tyre, who's just done a 24-hour race at Daytona, then has to fly 25 hours to come here and do a 12-hour race in hot conditions, that's far from ideal. So, look, it's been theorised, it's just talk, but it shows where the interest is coming from in this race, and that there is an enormous amount of international interest returning to Mount Panorama for the 12-hour.
Look at the times coming in. 888, Brock Feeney with the Mercedes AMG GT down to a 2:04.4.
Good luck.
It is a good luck, Grailsy, and the thing we should point out, particularly if you're not used to watching and listening to anything that goes on at Bathurst, that 3 days ago this was a public road. So this track is evolving, and in fact, in terms of the potential for fast laps, will be at its very best about 10 minutes before the end on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, well, probably before that, because by the end of the race you get the 12 hours of marble build-up.
That's a good point.
Debris and all kinds of clutter on the circuit. So honestly, it's probably best this afternoon at about 10 minutes to 5 when we crown the Alan Simonson Hollywood winner.
Found a friend down here in the pit lane. Alex Davison, welcome back to the mountain. It's been a couple years since you've done this race. What's it like to come back and all of a sudden you're back at the mountain and you're driving a Mercedes?
It's really exciting. It's the first time I've done this race in anything other than a Porsche for a little while. Not the first time, but first time for a while. And it's, fantastic to do it in a GT3 car again. We did it in a Carrera Cup car last year, which was great, but when you're driving around looking in the mirrors for 12 hours, it's slightly stressful. So, we've got a great bunch of guys. Scott, Jeff, Craig and I, we all get along really well. Relatively low stress within the team, but obviously we're pushing hard and want to do well also.
You've got the same crew back together from the win last year. That's got to be a great start to trying to go in and defend the title.
Absolutely, absolutely. We sort of all work together all year, even in the Carrera Cup Championship. I work with Scott coaching, and Jeff's in our team as well, and then Scott and Craig go back a little bit as well. So we all sort of just get back in the groove as we did last year and work together really well. So we're aiming for that, Pro-Am podium, but it's very, very competitive in the Pro-Am class. So we need to get all our ducks in a row to do well there.
You guys have the best message in the paddock, though, on your car. A much bigger reason than just being here for racing. Are you feeling the extra fan support from that?
I think so. We get a lot of extra fan support with having Craig with us because he's a big deal up here at Bathurst. But we're supporting the Prostate Cancer Foundation. It's sort of touched, not directly, but touched a few of us indirectly with family members and stuff, and it's a cause that is very important to Scott and Craig in particular. So last year we had, get out of the way here, we don't get run over. Last year we had fantastic support from the fans. The car was covered in signatures for the people who donate money to the foundation, get to sign their name on our car. And unofficially raised over $60,000 last year. I think it was actually more than that though. So we're hoping that's another, we want to get a podium at the race this year, but we'd love to do better than we did last year in terms of supporting that foundation. So good stuff.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
car still in the garage, guys, but it's looking more and more positive. Like Craig Lance will finally get some laps around the mountain this weekend. Alex was saying every time he's gone behind the wheel, it's been a red flag or some kind of niggling issue. And I said, well, that's just Craig trying to stay dramatic and stay fresh for the race.
A great point, Shay, and good to hear from Alex. Yeah, he and his brother Will, their dad Richard, who's a well-known identity in the Australian motorsport landscape, was touched by prostate cancer, as so many, and members of Lowney's family too. And in fact, the number of stories in Aussie motorsport in the last 36 months of people that going to renew their licence and go through the standard blood tests and physicals to do it have discovered they've had it without even knowing. And it's a blood test these days. You don't even have the awkwardness around it. Neil Crompton, John Bow, some pretty serious names have both found out that they've been affected by it without knowing otherwise. So please go and get yourself checked. It's very important. I am going to go and sponsor us to sign that car. So I'll make a donation. We'll go and sign the car and be part of that. I think our names need to be on it for tomorrow. Could be the good luck or the bad luck for them. I don't want to say
the
either
only
way.
time my name's going to be on a car at... John Hindorf. We've had the Hindorf name here before as well. Hello to David Drinkwater, who's watching and listening. Second in class here a few years ago in a GT4, I seem to remember. Grillsy in the little Porsche. David, nice to know that you're tuned in as well. 26 degrees in Argentina. Oh. And they're still frothing about winning. They said we've won world champions or something. I'm not sure. Didn't know they played cricket in Argentina. No, exactly right. Absolutely. Christopher Haase has gone quickest in this session. 35 minutes to go, by the way, in practice number 5. This is the final hot pit lane session where teams can practice refueling in race conditions as well. 204.15 for the young German who has been around here plenty of times. Knows his way around. Sheldon van der Linde second in the BMW at a 204.2. Fred Vervisch, that's the 55 Fuchs Racing entry, 204.36. SVG in Triple Eight has punched out a 204.3. Good lap for SVG to get the super cheap car up there. And Yasushi Hin behind the wheel now of 777, finally starting to get some pace. He had a frustrating day yesterday. He said everything we threw at that car did not work. So they were having a pretty deep and meaningful when I went down and annoyed them in the paddock last night. Yasa, pretty affable about life, though, but was just scratching his head about what that car was doing. So they're working hard on that. For those of you playing the class game, the Boycell Watchers Pro-Am class, currently quickest is the 65 Sports Bet entry. Fraser Ross behind the wheel, their third outright. Daniel Gaunt on top. Two-time New Zealand Grand Prix winner, by the way, is young Daniel. And the New Zealand Grand Prix is on this weekend. And our colleagues over in Sky Sports New Zealand will be showing that live, as well as the Bathurst 12 Hour. So they've got multiple Sky channels. There'll be lots of motor racing on, and good luck to our colleagues who are both working on the broadcast. Our friend Greg Rust is on the team there to call the New Zealand Grand Prix at Hampton Downs, which is an amazing racetrack. We've got a great field, 20 cars set for that. Dan Gaunt running here this weekend in the silver class, and 15th outright. Jeff Taunton from Mark Hunt Australia leading the way in the Triple One. 19th position in the leading invitational class. That's where your favourite runners run so far. Fred Vervisch, 203.95, quickest time of the day so far. First into the threes on Super Saturday here at the LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12 Hour. And for those of you at the circuit, A, don't go anywhere because it's all great. B, qualifying starts just after midday. C, 1:30 Formula One car on this racetrack. Formula One car, John, at Mount Panorama. I can beat that. I saw it this morning
yes.
in a petrol station. They were doing some filming. Yep. And as I was driving up to the mountain, I looked to my right, and Eve says, oh, look, there's the Red Bull. Yeah. And I went, oh, yeah. What? Double.
Bathurst. You just never know what you're going to get when you drive into Bathurst. A Red Bull Formula One car.
Full pit stop with the mechanics in the petrol station on the way up to here this morning. Awesome. Shea Adam.
Are you guys sure that the number 74 Audi is the quickest car on track?
It was.
Yeah, are you sure? Because that's not how Audi is acting. Down here in their garage, Chris Haase still behind the wheel of this car. They are examining every corner of it, every tire, readjusting the pressures, checking the temperatures all the way across the Pirellis in 3 different spots to make sure that they are wearing evenly. The hood is up, the bonnet, I suppose you would call it, because there's no engine underneath it. They are doing setup changes to this car, namely everywhere that they can access from a mechanical standpoint. And they went in with a notepad with lap times on it, so a good old-fashioned Jeremy Shaw lap chart to show Chris Haase just what he has been doing behind the wheel and where maybe he can find a little bit more speed. They are not acting like this is the fastest car on track. They are acting like this car has a lot more speed. They just need to find out where.
Well, I think it does have a lot more speed, Shay. Pole position last year, if you remember, in very, very cold conditions, was a 202.4. So right now, they're just into their early 203s. The track will evolve, and they're not at maximum attack yet, but there's definitely time to find. For those of you watching the screens or watching our live video stream, we're riding on board with the 999 Gruppa M Racing Mercedes AMG GT3, one of the favourites coming into the weekend. This is a team that's been on the podium a couple of times, should have been on the podium in 2020, John. Crossed the line in that position, but got a penalty post-race for a pit lane infringement and were dropped back down to the bottom half of the top 6, unfortunately. But their strike rate here is very, very good. Hong Kong-based team with connections all around the world, and they've been a Mercedes AMG supported squad for some time. And among the highlights of the fact that we've got, as well as a rookie driver who's behind the wheel now, is that we've got this combination of Mauro Engel and Raffaele Marciello in the same car, driving together at Mount Panorama, two of the most experienced, speedy, exciting to watch Europeans that have ever been in this race. And this is a really good combination. And right now, the 999's just bumped up to second position with a 204.0. Good lap. Fred Vish still shown on top. That 74 car Shay was just talking about just leaving the lane. Christopher Haase still behind the wheel. Jamie Whincup up to fourth in the 99 with a 204.2. That's the Boost Mobile entry run by 888 Race Engineering. The BMW of Sheldon van der Linde shown in fifth position, as Jamie Whincup goes to the top. Good lap for J-Dub, 203.9 for the Mercedes AMG. So 888 now starting to get a flex on, and immediately bumped by Jules Gounon, who is immediately bumped by Thomas Preuning. And now there's big chunks of time as the circuit rubbers in, the UV gets up, and these drivers get on top of the cars. Preuning with a 203.4. So now the goalposts are starting to move quite significantly in this practice session from a lap time point of view. Still 30 minutes to go.
Just a couple of minutes ago, the number 77 AMG Mercedes GT3 with a bit of sandpit sightseeing, as Scott Fitzsimmons has said. Hello, Scott. Good to see you last night down at the Ox, and thanks to the collective for turning out in force, and Shakedown for allowing us to sort of piggyback on their party as well. Great to see so many faces again after 3 years away, and it is clear to me that the excitement and the anticipation for this event is as high, if not higher, than ever. B12HR, hashtag B12HR at RSL_studio, and plenty of people in the UK listening in just after 10 o'clock there in the evening yesterday, of course. So we're speaking to you from your futures, and
it's good.
It's good.
Yeah, no,
it's going to be fine.
Can report it's okay.
Yeah, Europe, of course, an hour beyond that as well. So that's just after 11 o'clock on a Friday night. Maybe people coming in from an evening out. For those of you in the US, well, mid to late afternoon. So an opportunity for you to tune in this evening, settle yourself in for you as we go towards free practice 6 and then the shootout itself. And we've got some further race coverage this afternoon of the supports as well that you'll see on the stream. And trust me, if you haven't seen the support races here before, you are in for a treat. Don't disappear once we get running later on this afternoon. Combined sedans has been mega.
Formula Ford this morning was a dead heat
Pretty much.
at the line.
3 cars.
Yeah, correct. Formula Ford at this place, it's like the Mazdas you were calling it Daytona last weekend, where you want to be fourth coming onto Conrod on the last lap.
Can you imagine what a field of 40 Idemitsu Mazda MX-5s round here would be like? We need to do a flyaway race for that. I am going to speak to Jonathan at Mazda USA and see if we can get the Cup cars down to this. That wouldn't be any fun at all. No fun at all. All right, it's Richard Krill and John Hindorf with you. We are into the second half of this 1 hour practice session. Good to have your company wherever you are, here at the track or further afield. Don't forget that hashtag. Hello to Jesse Young. Enjoyed meeting you last night as well. Gareth Evans has tuned in. John Hepburn asking why is the live stream in 2 parts. Several different streams for the different sessions today. The race will be covered in its entirety. We're not stopping the race in the middle to change over streams. So long as you keep tuned in, you will see all of the race, John. So just checking the times coming in. Faster one last time around for the BMW M4 GT3 of Augusto Farfus in the WRT number 46 car. That is the mainly white car with blue and red. And the big yellow stylized 46 machine. That is Valentino Rossi. Hit the headlines this morning. Front pages of some of the papers around these parts. Valentino Rossi. Now a BMW driver. New fastest lap for a man who knows how to win here. Jules Gunon in the Mercedes-Benz AMG GT3, the 75. That's the defending champion car. Won here when this event last ran. So that was 9 months ago, wasn't it, from here? I won't fall into that track. The Sun Energy 1 machine. Kenya Bull has he's bullish. He's bullish about this. They had a decent run going at Daytona, didn't quite work out the way they wanted to. He's on home ground here, literally. He's brought a property around the circuit here in recent times, so he's sleeping in his own bed, and he's invited everybody to the party on Sunday night. Win, lose or draw.
Even if they don't know they've been invited.
Yes.
Yes.
Even if he doesn't know that they've been invited.
Actually, and for those of you here at the circuit, and those of you that are in the broader Bathurst region, actual legitimate party at the circuit, upstairs from where we are, on the pit roof, free for anyone in the precinct. DJ Brooke Evers will be performing tonight and tomorrow night, immediately at the conclusion of on-track running. So get upstairs, food and drink, DJ playing, amazing atmosphere. The weather's going to be great. Watch the sunset.
Could have brought some records to play. Do you not play?
Get on the decks a bit.
The old ones.
I've got a record collection.
On the old ones.
Unfortunately, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon on LP doesn't have the DJ vibe I think they're going for. I'm just throwing it out there. That's sort of
thinking that would be a different type of party. I don't think it's going to give the vibe. Yeah,
I would play Telegraph Road by Dire Straits in its entirety, but it's not the vibe they're looking for, I don't think. Anyway, Jules Gunon is quickest still with a 2:02.8 now, so that's the first lap into the twos. That's a little bit more serious.
Hello.
That's a little bit more qualifying spec.
2:01.2860. 2:01.2860 set back in 2016 by SVG.
I'm still not convinced we'll get near that, because that was a much newer racetrack, and there was a tyre war and all sorts of stuff going on. But at the same time, the pace will be hot this year. So's the noise of that AMG, Shade.
Yes, it is, and it's the one with the fire all over it. That would be the Sun Energy 1 car. So fire and hot and warmth and all that is exactly on point for this car, guys. They've just done a brake pad change, and brake pads, not pads and rotors, so that's different from what we've seen up and down the pit lane yesterday through the practice sessions when people were practicing that. But that was them taking off a set of pads, putting a new set on. No pneumatic air guns to do any sort of a change. So it was old-style-y wrenches, and then, of course, the gloves of doom being put into the hundreds of degrees hot brake calipers to try and pull the pads out. Jules Gunon out, Luca Stolz back in. So you're not going to see a blistering lap this lap by from Luca. At least you'd hope not, because then he would glaze the pads. But don't give him too much leave time before you start watching those lap times. Luca's going to put down a flyer as well.
Back in the UK, Simon Mayo, one of my favourite music DJs, has moved from the BBC to Greatest Hits Radio, and he's taken with him some of his well-known features of his radio show, one of which is Confessions. And we've got one here. I feel like I should be playing the music for Spooner in Orange. This is what, when people ask me down here, and I've been asked by everybody that we've done interviews with this week, what does Bathurst mean outside of Australia? How big is it internationally? Spooner in Orange, who is one of the Orange Army, thank you to all of our marshals and volunteers, has just said, that moment when you tell your work colleagues you have to leave the dinner table early because you're tired, but really you're racing back to your hotel room to catch some endurance racing from into the future tomorrow at the Bathurst 12 Hours. There you go. Yeah. That is what we're... I've actually got goosebumps as I'm talking about that, because that is exact... Repeat, rinse and repeat. Spooner, great confession. Thanks for being honest, with us at least, and enjoying the coverage back in the UK.
Just a little update. We had the red flag earlier for the 101 Harold's Valenti Rosso Motorsport car stopping on the circuit, and then you heard about their 10-minute penalty for ignoring the red flag, and they sat out 10 minutes of the session. Well, they were under investigation for further breaches of the red flag protocol, so there may be more penalties to come for that from Motorsport Australia Race Control. We'll confirm that for you as they happen. But these are all the little 1%ers that we'll talk more about as we build up to the race that you need to get right. These are the things that will make the difference between you standing on that famous Bathurst podium, like so many of the greats of our sport have done, and not standing on it. They're the little things. Breach of red flag procedure, driver time infringements. I see all of Audi looking up at me going, don't bring that up again. Oh, no. So these are the things you need to manage over the course of a 12-hour race, and indeed the weekend as a whole.
Just to go back to that question from John about the race is covered in its entirety, but because of the length of the race, the stream has to be split into two parts. They actually overlap, so you never miss anything. We've got 3 different streams today because of the amount of time that we're on air live and free, and therefore you can watch along today or tomorrow. But my point was that we are not stopping the race halfway through. So
a red flag, we need to stop the stream, so we're just going to chuck a lunch break.
Yeah. Did you ever do ski electrics with your mate when you fell off? And by the way, hello to the Australian Ski Electric Club, who are here in force. 18 camping spots that they've got around the mountain here. Where somebody fell off, you said stop, and you all had to get your hands off your controllers and wait until you got put back on again, and it was 3, 2, 1, go. I can just imagine that. Okay, everybody pull up where you are on the mountain.
I've got a 5-year-old nephew for that. So, hey, buddy, my car's off. Quick, go put it back on. Lap time check for you. Augusto Farfus behind the wheel of car 46. That's the BMW Team WRT entry that, well, we don't need to tell you who's going to be driving that with the Brazilian, but he's just gone 4th at a 2:03.8. Good lap. Matt Campbell's jumped up to 3rd in the 912 Manthey EMA Porsche. David Russell, very, very good lap from the man they name Coity. He is in the 47 Superbarn Supermarkets Audi R8. He'll share that with Jonathan Webb, former winner of this race, Theo and James Kanduris, the brothers from Canberra. David Russell has gone to 2nd at a 2:03.4. Great lap from D. Russ, who finally got himself onto the podium at the Bathurst 1000 in the not too distant past, and there was zero people I know that were disappointed at that. Everyone was just so rapt for D-Russ to get himself up there. Theo Kanduris has just jumped behind the wheel of that car. Maro Engels currently in the 999 in 5th position. Liam Talbot behind the wheel of the 65 Sports Bet Audi in 6th. Richie Stanaway, cool to see Richie in the race for the first time, finally getting some laps. The experienced Kiwi spent 4 seasons in the FIA World Endurance Championship as an Aston Martin factory driver, open wheel superstar for a time, came to supercars in Australia, spectacularly won the Sandown 500, and then the wheels fell off a little bit and he all but retired from the sport. Brought back last year for a wild card in the Bathurst 1000 with none other than Greg Murphy, which was very cool. They finished 11th in that race, and now linking up with Triple Eight. He replaces Garth Tander as Shane Van Gisbergen's co-driver in the Great Race later on this year. Brad Schumacher in the 55, the local boy for the Fuchs Racing Schumacher Motorsport Premier Audi in 8th position. Patrick Niederhauser getting some laps in the 74. That's the Audi Sport Customer Racing entry, factory drivers, and then rounding out the 10. At the moment, Shane Van Gisbergen chocking some laps up under car 888.
Renowned photographer, well Irish Kevin, listening from Northamptonshire, not envious at all. Yeah, right. I know you are, Kev. So I'm missing you, mate. And also Joey Morgan, who's tuning in from Harrogate in Tennessee with his 7-day-old son. His formal racing education begins with the Bathurst 12 Hours.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's top parenting, that, crazy. Top parenting. Because that youngster is going to get used to the sound of racing cars at a sensible volume, and as his little eyes are developing, he'll be seeing bright colours. I like that. That's brilliant stuff, Joey. Nice to know you're tuned in. Hashtag B12HR. That's B12HR. Crailsey and Hindy in the booth. We've got 17 minutes to go. Shea Adam down in the pit lane. Are we back to doing a programme of work? No, we are not, Crailsey, because more fast times coming in. The screen lighting up with greens at least below that Luca Stoltz time, or at least that 75 AMG time of 2:02.828. Plenty of people finding pace on the mountain.
Murray Engel goes second at a 2:03.1 in the Group M Yellow Mamba, they call it. It's the car rolling into pit lane now. He's such a very, very cool looking racing car. You certainly won't miss it. Bright yellow, goes everywhere. The AMG strong. His final or middle sector of the lap in particular was very, very good. That's across the top of Mount Panorama from the Audi Sport cutting to BMW Forest Elbow it is this year. So good lap from Maro, 2:03.1. Still only the one driver in the 2:02s in this session, and that was Gilles Gounon behind the wheel of the 75 Sun Energy 1. So Mercedes AMG 1 and 2, Audi 3rd, Porsche 4th, BMW 5th. The Lamborghini yet to set a representative lap time. It may well soon though, because former Porsche Carrera Cup Australia champion David Wall is now behind the wheel of that entry. But so far, John Hindhoff, so good from an equality standpoint.
Very much.
Across the GT3 brands. And remember, yesterday, the Lamborghini was 6th quickest overall. Actually, as I do, and being the insomniac that I am, and the nerd that I am, hand up, I'm working through some stats last night, and the similarities between Friday of last year's 12-hour and Friday of this year's 12-hour were extremely surprising. So yesterday's quickest time was a 2:03.99. Last year it was a 2:03.95, so 0.04 of a second. The Mostert Ross Talbot Audi was second on Friday last year, second on Friday this year. Sun Energy 1 Racing were in the top 4 last year on Friday and this year. And Wall Racing was 6th overall in Friday practice last year and 6th overall in Friday practice this year. And I think there were more of them. I just ran out of spaces on Twitter to note them down for future reference. So eerie similarities. What we're seeing today now is that with the good weather conditions that we've got and the competition within this field, we'll move those lap time benchmarks pretty significant further forward than where we were 9 months ago in pretty horrible weather conditions. Just under 15 minutes to go. You're watching practice number 5 at the LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12-hour for 2023. Australia's International Enduro. In Australia from 12:30 today, we're live on Fox Sports, KO and the 7 Network, Sky Sports New Zealand and around the world live streaming partners. We'd love to have your company. If you hear it, the circuit 103.9 FM is the frequency. Ignore the number I gave you yesterday. It was wrong, 103.9.
No, that's what you gave us yesterday.
No, I gave you, I gave
no,
a bump steer early on.
Early on, you were doing a discount yesterday.
Several megahertz short of $1 there. But if you are watching around the track, like mobile device, you can stream the commentary into your mobile device as well. So do listen in and enjoy what is one of the coolest races in this part of the world.
Speaking of listening in, would you like a little preview for what's going to come later? Because I'm standing in front of a closed garage door, and there is an engine being warmed up.
Yeah, that's a Formula 1 V8.
There you go. just wanted to tease you guys a bit.
No more, please.
Well,
It's just turned it off
I
now.
didn't turn it off.
Sure, you've turned it. What did you turn it off for?
I hit the big red button.
Don't hit the big red button. What's
Oh.
this big red button for? Don't.
Don't touch that. It'll take us off.
You remember that?
I remember
that was Patila on a few years ago.
Well, guys, I was going to jump in with an interview with one of our favorite driver, team owner, just general people from around the world, Earl Bamber. But guess what? He's wearing a fire suit, and he's being put to work. No, he's not going to drive the Porsche that is for Grove Racing this weekend, being run with EBM as well. The big light fixture in the front grille representing his company and organization. He is the driver change assistant for this weekend. So in his fire suit, and then the team manager came over and said, hey, if you're going to be doing driver changes, you need gloves and goggles too. And he goes, well, where do I get those? Racing drivers never change, do they?
He's the most overqualified driver assistant, isn't he? Like, a Le Mans 24-hour winner.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, he's won just about everything there is to win in sports car racing.
Won the World Championship in LMP1 back in 2017. Won this race twice as a driver, once as a team owner. He's won the Mobile 1 12 Hours of Sebring.
You could go on for hours, Shane.
Exactly.
And he's the EB and EBM,
yes,
Earl
he
Bamber.
is. Yeah,
Exactly. And
The
congratulations,
affable Kiwi.
by the way, this weekend we're missing the WB from EBM, if you see what I did there. Will Bamber, who he and Sarah are finally getting married this weekend in Mexico.
That's
what
fantastic.
A great week. So undoubtedly we'll be tuning in at some stage. The time zones work all right for Mexico. So if they've just had the ceremony, maybe you know, just before they go and have the evening.
One of the more surreal moments in my life involves Will Bamber. I was calling Career Cup Asia in 2018, and the final round was in Shanghai, and we went out on Sunday night in Shanghai. A city of 20 million people. There are as many people in Shanghai as there are in Australia, and we bumped into him randomly on the street.
Of course you did.
What are the odds? Completely and utterly random.
I'd say 1 in 20 million.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. It was a rhetorical question. Thank you very much.
Hey, look at that time from the number 47 Super Barn Supermarkets, Team MPC, Audi.
Well, that was Dave Russell earlier. Theo's in the car now, but Dave did that lap earlier. It's a good time. The one I was going to highlight, Richie Stanaway, wasting no time getting up to speed, as you would expect for someone with his level of experience, behind the 99 Boost mobile car, 2028, second only driver into the 202s, I should say, in this session. So that is a very good lap for Richie, and puts the Mercedes AMG 1, 2 and 3 in the leaderboard.
I'd say the wind has dropped even since the start of this session, actually. The LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12-hour banners and flags on the front straight are hanging a little more limply. Yesterday, it was like they were made out of Corex board, like we've got behind us here in the booth, because they were so straight out from the flagpoles. So it should make things a little less sketchy over the top of the mountain, where the cars are absolutely relying on their downforce. So what have we got left?
Just on
10 minutes, yeah.
Just on 13 degrees local, and the wind, from the southwest, just a light breeze this morning, Shay.
And a public service announcement to those people watching around the circuit. Take a half step back from the fences, please, ladies and gentlemen. Chaz Mostert has been told he is not the fastest driver around the track yet today because, well, he hasn't been in the number 65 Sportsbet Audi. He's just rectified that. And, yeah, he looks pretty amped up. He does the weirdest climbing into the car sequence. Both he and SVG go in head first, John. I don't understand that. But, yes, he is going out on hot Pirelli tires, so this will be a flyer right off the bat.
That's a supercars thing, Shay.
It's
diving in head first.
It's just strange.
Yeah.
It depends on the car. Some cars, it's actually much easier to do it that way. I know it looks odd, and I'm, my very, very limited driving career, one car that you had to do that with was that Chevron B8 I drove a couple of years ago at Silverstone. There was no other way that anybody of any decent size who wasn't a whippet would have got in any other way. And I was told, go in head first. I went, don't be silly, you're winding me up. And no, that's the way to do it.
Nice to strategically just weave in the driving of the Chevron there. I was at Malala the other year driving a Hyundai XL Cup car. It just doesn't quite have the same impact.
But I want to drive the XL Cup car. They used to race here. The races here were outstanding.
They're fantastic. Well, you need to come back for Easter because they're running at 6 hours again. So Chaz Mostert plugs himself in. A lot of these teams have been going through a program rotating drivers through. The other thing, and we'll talk more about it in practice 6 a little bit later on, qualifying is not just a one-driver job this year for any team. It takes 2 drivers to make the shootout. I'm going to try and explain it without giving everyone and myself an ice cream headache. But I'm going to do it later. I'm not going to do it. We've only got 7.5 minutes to go in this session, so we'll get to that in practice 6. But 2 laps combined, so there'll be a little bit of practice for that going on as well. Pick your 2 fastest drivers and get a lap time between the 2 of them, and that's what is going to be your qualifying position, or what gets you into the Pirelli shootout later on this afternoon, of course, to win the coveted Alan Simonson Pole Award. The 75 Sun Energy One Racing Mercedes still fastest, 2:02.8, set early on by Jules Gounon. Richie Stanaway second now for 99. 999 is next. Raffaele Marciello getting some laps behind the wheel and just consistently pounding out low 2:05s. Patrick Niederhauser is behind the wheel of the 74 Audi, and to tell them apart, there are very similar liveries between the 74 and the 777. One in Pro and one in Pro-Am. They've both got the Bend Motorsport Park livery on both of those cars. But you can tell with the colour panels below the number squares on the doors and on the bonnet, and then there's a sticker on the rear bumper as well of each car delineating their class, and it is silver for the Pro class at the front of the field. Well, you see Patrick Niederhauser here making his Bathurst debut, another fast European factory Audi driver who, as has been the case so often when they come to this part of the world, they get plugged in, they do 3 laps and they're instantly on the pace, and their ability to get up to speed on new circuits is always outstanding.
Last 6 minutes, Krilsey. Are we going to see some quicker laps? Still,
I wonder if they're just winding Raffaele Marciello up. As you do
saying bad things about his family
in the 999. Yes, so come on, mate, come on. There is a little bit of purple on the timing sector. Purple means quickest of the session. Maxi Goetz has just popped his car, the 888, up into a 2:03.44 for Maxi, so that puts them 6th. Matt Campbell's now behind the wheel of the 912 Manthey EMA Porsche in that bright yellow and green livery. Grello, it's called, predictably enough. He set the fastest first sector of the session, so looking to improve from there, 2:03.4. Niederhauser goes 4th in the Audi as the 74 car crosses the line with a 2:03.357. So the times continuing to compress. 2 cars in the 2:02s as Lucas Stoll starts a flyer as well. Looking forward to seeing what sort of lap time Matt Campbell does. His middle split wasn't his quickest of the session, but it was decent. We'll wait and see what Grello does when it gets to the line. Chat with Matty last night. Well, he goes fastest because, of course, 2:02.75 for Campbell.
Stoltz is in the pits, guys. He's calling it a session. They're having him go into the garage, so we are not going to see the Sun Energy One car fastest in this session.
Well, it's not about winning the Saturday morning Grand Prix, is it? So, yes. Ultimately, they've got a pretty good idea of what that car's capable of. To punch out some high 2s this early in the program's a pretty decent return. So they seem very comfortable with their car and their car speed. And the best thing is that Stoll's all but matched Gounon there, so they've got at least 2 of their drivers within a few tenths of each other, which is what you need for qualifying later on. Stanaway still 3rd. A few cars just dropping wheels off on the exit of turn 23. That's Murray's Corner, adjacent to the National Motor Racing Museum. Please go over and check that out if you're here at the circuit. Go and say good day to Brad. Tell him we sent you. It won't help you, but tell him we sent you anyway. And check it out. There's some amazing displays in there. They've got their Repco 50th anniversary display going on in there with some amazing cars. The 5000 there, a couple of old Tiranas, which you and I both froth over. It's a really cool place. Go and see it. Lots of Bathurst history, lots of 2-wheel history as well in there. People forget the 2-wheel heritage of Mount Panorama.
And there goes a Porsche to the top. Matty Campbell had been wound up. 2:02.751. The Australian Porsche superstar, hot foot from the 963 prototype at Daytona. He hasn't forgotten how to drive the 911 GT3. That is the outgoing model. This is the last time we'll see that car here as a Porsche factory or semi-works entry. There's a brand new version of that car out, which will be here next year.
Yeah, he did that lap and he's just peeled into pit lane now, so
that was a qualifying.
Didn't need to go any quicker than that.
I think that was a qualifying sim, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, 2027's not going slowly around this place. Yeah, it could have been. That car's done 17 laps in the session, like we touched on, and actually of the leading cars, that's not the most. Some cars have done 20 laps in this session so far. So good running, like we touched on at the start, getting some race runs in, which is so important. 20 laps for car 99, 20 laps for car 999, the AMGs, 21 for 888, with Maxi Goetz behind the wheel now. Lots of valuable lap time and valuable running. For those watching on the stream, it's the Sportsbet Audi, Chaz Mostert behind the wheel, but not doing massive things at the moment, just coasting across the top through McPhillamy Park onto the monochrome skyline. The wheel disappears beneath your steering wheel and then down through the S's to the spares box dipper, which at 60 k's an hour, the legal limit posted at Mount Panorama when you're just cutting laps in your rent-a-car early in the week, is too fast. 60 k's, you need to brake before you turn in there at 60 k's. Yeah, it's crazy. It's that tight, and yet these cars will go through there at about 85, 90 kilometres an hour before whacking the throttle under traction and firing down through the S's.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of Matty Campbell going back out for more. They've just done a front ride height adjustment to that Porsche, so there is more speed. Now, yesterday, they heard a lot of scraping through the microphones. The car was actually hitting across the top of the mountain, raised the ride height. Looks like they're going to put it a little bit lower and see if they can find a little bit more time.
Well, that'll be a validation run, Shay, because they're not going to have time to do a full run, but they'll have time to validate the change, make sure it works. So 18 laps for that car. There's only a few minutes left in the session, so they're not going to have time to actually go and do a flat-out lap. They might get an out lap and then an in lap at least, which should be enough to validate the change. Yeah, they were another team yesterday just playing with springs, playing with ride heights, a lot of with the minimum tyre pressure rule. A lot of the cars were either bottoming out a lot or they weren't low enough. There is a minimum ride height for these cars, that the balance of performance, the adjustment system that allows a rear-engine Porsche and a mid-engined Audi and a front-engine Mercedes and a turbocharged BMW to all lap within a few tenths of a second of each other. They have to comply to that, but you can still adjust within the parameters of your balance of performance. The second covering the top 8 cars in the order as the checkered flag drops. The fastest lap is a 2:02.75 set by Queenslander Matt Campbell, who not only in less than a decade has gone from nowhere to being a factory Porsche driver, but has gone from that to becoming a driver for Roger Penske as well, just to complete the sweep. Running in IMSA's new exciting GT3 class and an amazing new Porsche this year, having contested the Daytona 24 Hours last week. He very pleased to jump back in a GT3 car. He says genuinely loves driving these cars, even though he's a prototype driver now, loves driving them. He's got a couple of races on his agenda and to-do list this year.
Yeah.
He told me that he would love to get back to the Nürburgring as well. He says that place is just hectic in these cars.
I think that's a more than a strong possibility, to be honest. I was talking with Time to Track on, when was that, Thursday? And that is available for you to download from radiolemans.com and our Bathurst 12 Hours 2023 page. All there for you. The sound of the school children screaming over the top of the GT3 cars as they were so excited as we were driving down the town will live long in my memory. But Matty said it is a bit akin to muscle memory. He's jumped out of the 963 machine and come straight round here, but it is a bit like muscle memory, and in some ways I think it helps that this is the outgoing car and not the new car. The new car not eligible here quite yet because it hasn't gone through its all of its homologation and its BOP. So I think it might help. But as you pointed out yesterday, Krillsy, the last time that Porsche were farewelling, if that is a word. It is now, I've said it.
No, it is.
Nick Damon in the dictionary now. Last time they were saying goodbye and retiring a particular version of the venerable Porsche 911 and their race cars, it did rather well here.
Quite famously. Hello to Jake Dennis, if you're watching, though. Jake did share his pole lap, which unfortunately never counted, his shootout lap that year in 2019 in that V12 Aston Martin, which was one of the great laps. I think it was a low 2:02.4. Unfortunately, they had a technical issue with that car and they were excluded from the shootout, which handed pole to Raffaele Marciello and Gruppa M Racing. But it was a great lap. And Jake fought so hard there, but a Porsche on fresh tyres with a fired-up Matt Campbell behind the wheel carved them all up and won that race. Porsche's first win at Bathurst. Just at the end, speaking of Marciello, on the 22nd and final lap for car 999, went to 4th. So a 2:03.16 for the Swiss driver, just behind Richie Stanaway and just in front of Patrick Niederhauser. And at the end as well, Dries Vanthoor popped the 32 BMW. That's the Shell Helix-sponsored car into 8th position at a 2:03.6. So they're starting to build up the pace for the two BMWs, which have never been here before. And he pipped his teammate Maxime Martin by just a few tenths to go into who was 9th place in the 46 car, which of course he'll share with Valentino Rossi and Augusto Farfus. I think it was Farfus who did that time in the 46 early on. Chaz Mostert didn't get a real shake at it in that session. He jumped in right at the end, more for driver change and pit stop practice than anything, I suspect, but ended up 10th within 1.1. A 2:03.8 for the sports bet car. That car's probably got a second up its sleeve easy. So Chazzy will do Chazzy things a little bit later on.
Chazzy doing Chazzy things.
It's what he does.
Always very good. Well, going to throw down to Shea just for a moment. We're just waiting for Matt Campbell to come back into the pit lane.
He's in.
He's in?
Yep.
Well, let's see if we can throw down to Shea and get a word either from Matt or for somebody in that 912 Grello Manthey car. 2:02.751, the fastest time for the 2023 LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12 hours, 5th free practice session.
Fastest time of the weekend so far, John? Am I correct in
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
that?
yeah.
All right, good. So I'll be able to tell Matt that. He got out of the car, took his helmet off, and went straight over and was bombarded by crew members, and he's still making smacking noises with his hands. So I think they are still a bit concerned about the ride height. Maybe they were raising it when he did that lap and then tried to figure out if maybe they could just lift it up a little bit more to save the floor. But I know that's something that they were working on a lot yesterday. He's got 2 engineers around him and his 2 co-drivers. So he's in a pretty intense debrief. Do you want me to wait him out, John?
Yeah, I think we've got a moment or two, Krillsy, haven't we?
Yeah.
Before it would be good to hear from him and find out how the track is evolving and how their thinking is evolving as that goes on. Wave the microphone in his general direction. He's normally very good at that.
He's not even staring, honestly. And Matt's normally great at that. So
he's very good at staring.
He's having a really intense debrief with the guys. So I'll open my mic when I got him.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at the debrief, though, based on what everyone was saying yesterday about how they're all battling with getting these cars working with this tyre, the new Pirelli DHF tyre, which we've never run here before, coupled with that minimum pressure rule that is in place for this year with the track conditions. The other comment I had yesterday, JH, was that the track was as green as anyone's seen it at this place for some time. So there was massive struggles, not just getting the car right, but the track is an evolving beast as well. And yesterday, Matt was one of the drivers. He said the track was really green. It was really dirty. The grip level just wasn't there in the surface. And look, Bathurst was inundated with water for much of last year.
Yep.
So since we last raced here in November, there's certainly no track condition, and we've got to build up to that as we go around. Just looking at some of the stints there. So Matt Campbell did 8 laps in that session. Best of a 2:02.7, average 2:06. There was a trip through pit lane through in one of those laps. Lucas Stoles did 9 laps with a 2:03.2 and then a 2:04.9 average across a 9-lap stint. So a huge amount of consistency as well.
Meantime, we've got our AMG C63 out on the circuit. That's our safety car, and it's Craig Baird behind the wheel of that, just checking it out to make sure that the